Hey everyone, so we are inside the new Dolby Atmos immersive mixing room at Waterloo Records, which is the first of its kind. So to talk a little bit about, what's happening with the space, let's introduce ourselves.
Well, hello, I'm Chad Franscoviak. I'm the sort of founder, creator of New Studio. It's a modular, adaptable studio system that is built for immersive formats, primarily Dolby Atmos, but prepared for anything and everything that is to come. So as formats evolve, the room can evolve with the changes, and it is set up for both audio and video. What we're seeing here is kind of behind the walls. Yeah.
A little later, you'll see with the screens up too, right? So
yeah.
I don't know, Chad, is there really any room for more speakers in here?
Well, squeeze one in somewhere.
So what is the rig here? It's 9.
So this is 914 actually. So we have a couple of additional subwoofers in the back of the room for bass management, and these up here will be for LFE. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 4 overhead, 9 around the perimeter.
Yeah. So you mentioned that what sets this apart from like a regular mixing room is that it's like a modular space.
Yeah.
So you could literally disassemble this, transport it, and then reassemble it in another location exactly as it is.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
And you can use any kind of speaker.
Right.
Or different kinds of projectors, potentially.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about like what got you started on this venture.
Sure. Yeah. It was very organic, actually. I spent 20 plus years of my life working with John Mayer primarily in recording studios everywhere. And we I got the opportunity working with John to work in like just all kinds of different places, and really got to understand what was super functional and effective about a studio versus what didn't kind of work all of that well. So I'd had in mind for a while like some efficiency things that I wanted to put into a studio at some point. With John's last record that he released called Sob Rock, it was right at the time when Atmos had become a requirement for deliverable with his label at the time, Columbia. And
for context, this is in like July of 2021.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so on the album's release day, he went on to Apple Music and listened to this record that he'd, been working on for, been putting his heart and soul into for however long, and realized that the mixes that he was hearing were not what he had been working, because Spike Stent mixed the stereo version of the record, and John's very hands-on. He worked really closely with Spike, making sure every single thing was exactly how he wanted it. And when he went on to Apple Music, like I said, on release day to listen to it, he learned that those were not the mixes that he had worked with Spike on. It turns out that they had been remixed in Atmos by another engineer unaffiliated with the project. So those mixes were pulled off of Apple Music, and then John and I went in with Josh Goodwin remixed the Atmos version. It went back on to Apple Music soon thereafter. Anyhow, that was my first sort of awareness of Dolby Atmos and its kind of importance and future with music.
But you bring up something that is a common issue with people that I talk to, is that when these multi-channel formats are introduced, the record labels like to make sure that there's a big catalog of stuff available to people. Mm-hmm. It happened with Quad in the 70s. It happened with 5.1 20 years ago, and now probably on the biggest scale ever with Atmos. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of cases, they sort of farm these jobs out to specialty engineers who exclusively mix in Atmos or Immersive. And some of them are good, some of them less so. It depends on the nature of the project. But I think it is important for this format to succeed that the artists have to be involved in these mixes, because it is their music. Certainly. Yeah,
without question. And, so much of the mixing process, even if it's someone mixing the album remotely, those mixes are always being listened to and reviewed and commented on by the artists in their own studio, in their own sort of familiar spaces. And if you don't have the capabilities of even being able to play back in that format, it's not great, right? Yeah. So really quickly, I realized that we needed to have some Atmos capabilities John has 2 studios, and one of the 2 of them I wanted to kind of outfit with Atmos. And so sort of began this project, in that I was looking to, convert one of those 2 rooms, and neither was really suitable for it because of various architectural things or, primarily architectural.
Well, one of the funny things we were talking about, just before this taping, is that one of the things that's interesting about Atmos is that there are very strict requirements for when you build a studio, like on the production side. Dolby has these very detailed specs about speaker placement and distance and all that. So to get a certification to mix in this format, on the professional side, there is a rigorous process. But one of the things that's interesting about the format is that no one really knows how consumers listen to these mixes. Mm-hmm. I mean, because of the nature of object-oriented audio, you could listen to it on headphones, you could listen on a Sonos soundbar, or you could listen on a system with, 10, 12, 15 speakers. But I think what holds a lot of people back who want to explore the format, who, may be indie or unsigned artists, is they're not really able to get into a proper mixing space. So I think one of the things that's cool about this product is you can literally just ship this out. It can be built in a day, and someone can go in and mix a format in a perfectly calibrated, well-adjusted room.
Yeah, that is the goal. Yeah, for sure. Can we introduce Jon Niess here? He's been sitting here. I want to make sure he's, part of this conversation, because he knows more.
My turn to talk.
He knows more than I do by a long shot about,
Well, I think that, you were kind of left off where you needed to go build a room because the format you thought was taking off, and how difficult that is, right? Mm-hmm. In a space that's not designed for it. So you're sawing and hammering and routing cables and getting on ladders and hanging things from ceilings, and then you did exactly the same thing I did. I think you put it in a big room first to figure it all out, and then you went and tried to put it somewhere else, and it gets you're then remeasuring angles. It's a pain in the ass, mm-hmm. is what it is.
Yeah,
and so I did it 3 times. You did it a couple times, and it's sort of like, I think, I'm just paraphrasing what you've told me, there's just got to be a better way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I ran into you, and you finally, after me begging several times to see it, we were not very forthcoming in the beginning, but I got in to see it, and this thing is mind-bogglingly simple in a certain way, it's the concept is sort of, why didn't I think of that? But in the detail of it, in the construction, the quality of the construction of it, and the modularity of it, and the ability to deploy it and strike it, is just unlike anything else that's out there. And that speaker is in that location because that's where the Dolby spec says it's supposed to be. And if I move it next week to a different location, that speaker is going to be in exactly that location. And it's kind of a big deal,
Yeah.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. And also, the first couple of builds, or over the course, I guess, of developing to this point, right? The Dolby specs have changed, right? They've changed like 3 different times where the placement of overheads go and things like that. And so it was really clear that adaptability was going to need to be a big part of it, right? Where when those specs change, you can just adjust things and you're still, where you need to be. Also, there's also, there is some flexibility to it too. So you can, I mean, to like the DART system in and of itself. So you're kind of given a range of placement too. So you can try this sort of, placement for a bit and then try something else and then go back to exactly where you were. And I find that very helpful too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just to like kind of give people an idea. So the way what this is like, as you can see in the video, there's like an outer frame. Then there's this area with the acoustic panels and the speakers. And then the speakers will all be covered by basically like a 360-degree screen.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting about it, and you mentioned this to me when you had me up at Bozeman to check it out earlier in the year, is like, do you think it's weird that you can't see the speakers?
Right.
Because whenever you go to a mixing studio, you always have the speakers to look at. And there's something that happens in your brain when you're trying to figure out where things are placed. It sort of works in conjunction with your eyes and you feel like things are coming from a certain place. So it is quite a different effect. I mean, this is like a build in progress. This screen is going to be installed either later today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it really is like a full-on audio-visual experience.
Yeah.
To be in one of these rooms.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, working in studios, there's not all that many occasions where video isn't involved in some capacity, right? Whether you're working like you're doing, like an instructional or a promotional or a social media thing or something, there's always some kind of video involved, and just having a clean video solution without obstructions was important to me also. And then as it kind of kept developing, it just made sense to just be prepared for whatever. The whole premise of this is just to be prepared for whatever comes next, so that you're not just kind of... Yeah.
I mean, another reason why I find it exciting and that it's being installed here at Waterloo is that looking at it from like the consumer side, we mentioned just before that no one really knows how people digest these mixes. A lot of people probably think Atmos is a headphone-only technology. I bet a lot of people don't even know that you can listen to it in these elaborate multi-speaker systems, which is what the records are being mixed on. In most cases, I would hope. Maybe some people do mix on headphones. But I love the idea that you can get people who are, potentially shopping here to just get in the space and hear Atmos for what it's really like. Because it's one of those things, like, it sounds a little silly when you explain it to people. Like you sit in this room and there's like speakers all around you and different instruments shoot out of all the speakers. Yeah. And it's one of those things you just have to experience it to understand why it's such a valuable technology.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the opportunity to have our very first new studio in a space like Waterloo is it's perfect because, first of all, I've never seen a studio right off a retail space before. That in and of itself is super cool. But also, there's a lot of questions about the format still, and a lot of unfamiliarity, certainly from the consumer side, but also from the production side. So just having it in off a retail space, in a public sort of space, not public, what do you call it?
Yeah, I mean, it's consumer space out there for sure.
Yeah. And then people studio, can come in and check it out. Like, it's just about the point is to make the tools all more accessible. I had a really hard time accessing it, short of renovating a space, buying all of this equipment, installing it all and going, this is what it's all about. It's not as accessible as just setting up a pair of stereo speakers. So that's what it's about.
On the one hand, I think it's kind of cool that anybody can just get the Dolby renderer. Even it's built into some DAWs. So in that sense, the tools are accessible in that on the software. But to actually set up like a calibrated monitoring room, especially for like an unsigned music creator, is not really something that's in the cards unless you're really passionate about it. But talk to me a little bit about like the kind of the development process and maybe some like challenges you ran into designing the space.
Challenges have been aplenty.
Sure.
Yeah. I just wanted it to be as simple and as intuitive as possible from an assembly standpoint. But even I kind of looked at it two ways. There's the sort of physicality of the space, and then there's the sort of experiential part of the space. The experiential part of the space has always been my kind of guiding. Like, I just want it to be really intuitive, simple, and not influence anyone's workflows. Like, however you work, I just want to make it as seamless for you as possible. Like I'm not trying to impose any certain types of software or any certain types of speakers or anything like that. Like, use whatever you're familiar with and work however you're used to working. Let me just try to make it as easy on you as possible. So kind of starting from the ground up here, the whole kind of system is built on this stage, and the stage we build in our workshop, and they're modular 4x4 or 4x8 panels that we just lay out on the floor and snap them all together. And inside these are that's where all the wiring infrastructure lives. So all your power is in these wiring troughs. All of your signal cable can be routed, around equipment to your workstation, which will be here eventually. It can go under the walls back to your speakers and up the uprights. It's just making hooking up equipment as easy as possible and plugging in your laptop
or changing it
charger.
Later. That's even more important. Things change. You add speakers, you change speakers, all kinds of things, and then that's a big job sometimes. It's not a job at all now. Right?
Yeah. So it's just thinking through all of the things in studios that I liked the most, and I also spent 20 plus years touring. So a lot of this is inspired by things I picked up from being on the road. The stage, for example, is, kind of inspired by touring stages, how they snap together and how you lay them out. And that establishes different footprints for the studio size. All of the structural stuff is built, is fixed into the stage. Like, all of that was really kind of pulling inspiration from touring life. Challenges you asked about. Actually, I would say the biggest challenge with this was, what am I going to do? How am I going to solve for when the speakers need to be relocated? How are the acoustics and the walls going to also be rearranged? That was maybe one of the toughest sort of things. And these acoustic columns that we came up with, the nice part about these is they also, it's all a track system around here, so the speakers can be relocated. The acoustic columns can kind of be reconfigured around them. These columns rotate. One side is reflective and one side is absorptive, so you can kind of tune your your acoustic space as well using these. So you can kind of shift them around and rotate them, kind of get things balanced the way you want from an environmental standpoint.
Yeah.
And then,
A couple different sizes too, right? So
yeah, and there's different guts to each of them for different sort of, yeah. So that was a big challenge. How to, I don't know. More, there will be more.
Of course, yeah. Well, one of the fun things about this project, at least for me, because I didn't have to do any of the work building it, is that I got to come in and just like listen to a lot of mixes in it. And I'm sure in the process of calibrating the speakers, you guys just sort of listen to an endless amount of Atmos mixes, that are on streaming services or on Blu-ray or whatever, or stuff from IAA. So I'm curious, after all the months of testing and listening to things, what were some of the best Atmos mixed records you heard?
Oh, wow. Well, my right-hand man, Cole, can attest that I think we start every listening session with a Billie Eilish track. They're just so great.
Yeah.
Like, they're just from top to bottom, just terrific. They use the just the space so well. Everything is so, like, everything just sounds
low
great.
End is
and
so perfect.
It's, low end so perfect.
Yeah.
It's just great. And so we kind of always sort of, I think that all of my Apple Music playlists are like, certainly my favorite artist as far as Apple knows is Billie Eilish for sure. Just that's based on how many times
over and over and over.
So yeah, other mixes or albums. John's done some pretty great stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me think about our playlist here.
I'm thinking about stuff.
Cole,
Yeah.
chime in.
Yeah.
Now he's
There's no wrong answers.
Dumping
No.
Cole.
I think we listened to the Peter Gabriel record.
We listened to the Peter Gabriel record. That's
when I was
really
there.
great.
That's good, yeah.
Um,
Part of the reason why it's great is because they weren't afraid to get away from the stereo mix.
Yeah.
It is a very different, it has some different parts in it and things.
yeah.
And that was kind of the whole thought process behind that record.
Yeah, I got to ask you a question. I got to ask both of you a question. What's your take on Atmos being like a reimagining of a track versus staying true to the original as closely as possible? Now, I guess it's probably a different answer if it's like a back catalog mix versus a new release. But do you feel like Atmos should stick really close to the stereo mix and just make it a little bit wider and whatever, or do you just go for it?
It depends on, to me, like how long the record has existed in like the public consciousness. Like if it's something that came out like a year ago, or if it's the Atmos is being done the same time as the stereo, then I think you have a little more creative license than if it's something that was recorded like 40 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To me, you've got all this space. It's like, are you going to paint with 3 colors?
Yeah.
You got all this space. Use the space. That on the other side of that is like if there's a guitar's panned over on the right and another one's panned on the left, don't swap them. They may go wider or they may go higher or something like that. But using, I think, like I've had like drum break stuff maybe starting up high behind you and coming kind of blossoming into the kind of a more powerful place there. That's a really great effect sometimes, and sometimes it's not. But I just think you should use it if you can. And it's really kind of, when you have clients that can hear the stuff on speakers, and we talked about this before. Sometimes I actually pay to have my clients go to a place in their locale, wherever they are, to go hear it. Several of them come back and they either compliment you about your choices of placement and so they get it. I think if they hear it on speakers right away. If they hear it on headphones, they're not sure what they're even listening to. But I've been really lucky. I get a lot of compliments about placement. Sometimes there's EQ things or there's some other things to change. There's always notes, but I think people that are open to the format, that's what you're here for. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're here to just make it a little bit.
You get to work on a lot of stuff that's like surreal music.
Yeah, I do.
A lot of like electronic kind of
Friends of Friends music, that label, there's a lot of stuff that is.
And I think if you're mixing music that was not meant to sound like a band playing on stage with no frills, then you should have creative license to do a surreal Atmos mix. If it is something where it's like their intention was to make it just sound like a band playing on stage, then maybe you have a little less.
Yeah, and
license.
Then maybe you just use the ambient kind of thing.
But, yeah,
like we talked about early ACDC records today. I don't know. That's kind of harder. Get everything going like this. It just doesn't have the slap you in the face kind of punch to it.
Vintage mixes, it's an interesting thing, and we were just talking about this last night, how a lot of times, sometimes when they mix them again for this format, it reveals like, oh wow, like that was recorded really well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like you put on like an old mix after you listen to like a Billie Eilish song and you're like, well, like where's the low end?
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Yeah, and all
it's
that
just
space
because
just doesn't,
it doesn't exist on the tape. That's just what it was, because tastes have changed and the kind that what people expect in terms of the tonality of records is so different now than it was in past decades. So, everybody is facing these challenges who's mixing in Atmos. And I think the more people experiment, the better it is, because we'll learn what works and what doesn't work. And it's important that when you're doing this experimenting, you're in a space where all the speakers are perfectly calibrated. It sounds good, like this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, these rooms sound, and visually and audio-wise both, it's just they sound and look incredible. Just kind of like wait till you see this, and it's something.
So here's a question I have for you. So this is a 914 room. So it has these wide speakers that go between the side surrounds and the front. And in consumer 714 systems are rare. Like I built one because I wanted to. But consumer, 9-channel systems are even rarer. So I'm curious, in your adventures of auditioning mixes and things, do you find that those extra speakers really add something meaningful to the presentation?
Yeah, in my experience, Apple Music only plays back in 714, so you don't actually get any information through these wides. A lot of I kind of defaulted to it early on because I had a lot of conversations with people who are pretty deep into Atmos mixing when I was just starting to learn about it. And they all recommended the wides. And I find that even just listening back to 7.1 or whatever, 7 whatever systems, that I feel like there's a gap,
kind of a hole
there. Yeah, I feel like I actually, a lot of those mixes, in fact, I feel like I only get really the sides and I don't get enough out of the rears, and I really miss the wides. I don't know if that was
like a panning thing.
Yeah, or what it was. So but when there's mixes that are really using the rears for something, it could be ambience or whatever, but I can really kind of feel them back there, and I feel more sort of surrounded. I love it, and it always does feel like there's a little bit of information missing up there to me. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about going from 5.1 to Atmos is that the location of the rear surrounds in a 5.1 setup is closer to where the rears in 7.1 whatever are than the sides. And if you wanted to pan to the side in 5.1, it would come out of the front and the back. So it'd be sort of like a phantom center.
Right.
Which isn't as solid as like actually having a speaker there.
Right.
And it would sound strange, like if you were mixing like AC/DC and you put the drums in the front and the guitars in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a 5.1 setup. But on a lot of rock records I've heard, people do sometimes pan guitars to the sides. And sort of because they're a little closer to the front and not so detached, sometimes it can work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes it spreads it too wide for us, like like an AC/DC record. I just think it gets so wide there, you don't get any of that punch. So to me, it's better to kind of leave them there and then maybe send some stuff that way to kind of fill it out a little bit.
Yeah,
because
and
so you can get the slamming going on.
another
steadily.
observation I've made just from listening to stuff is that generally the rears, like you say, tend to be underused compared to the sides and front, or even the heights. And I think part of the reason for that is because the rears generally don't translate as well to the headphones. Usually when you pan to the rears, they just kind of get quieter. And I guess that's the algorithm trying to create the impression that the sound's a little bit duller because it's coming behind you, because it hits your ear from a different direction. The rears are quiet, and the rear heights are the quietest position. So I think once you start to imagine if you're like a new artist and you sit in one of these rooms, you would think like, well, why shouldn't I just pan stuff to all these speakers? Because it sounds great in here. And then when you go over to the headphones, it's kind of like, well, maybe I need to rein this in a little bit. So there's translation. But I think it can be done in a way where you get something you could be happy with in all scenarios. It just takes a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you touched on something too, which is the artist perspective, right? The artist coming in and listening and going, wow, I could just, I think that especially with artists as more and more sort of realize or embrace the idea that the Atmos mix is what Apple is going to default to, right?
Yes.
So that's how anybody who's listening to their material is going to hear it. So really considering Atmos or, immersive from early production stages, like, wow, I have a bigger soundscape to work with. What could I do with this? I'm really excited about artists embracing that and really, creating with that in mind. That's something that's been really exciting to me about this from the beginning is like, look, here's your palette. Like, you can use as much as or as little of it as you want, but it's this big, like, and getting sort of artists in on it from the conceptual stage. I think that's when the whole thing really blossoms and will continue to, I stole your word, blossom.
Because so much of what's out there is just like people taking stems of things that were intended for stereo, and it can work if it's a very dense production, certainly. But I agree what you're saying. Like, what if you thought about it from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Not to say like that you're sort of like thinking about it when I'm writing songs, like, ooh, I'm going to write this guitar part so I can put it over there. But when you're tracking, like you could put up more room mics. Or if you're layering things up, you could do more doubling. Yeah. Like, there's cool little things you could do on the production side to make the experience better in the end.
Yeah. I think, too, that because you have this, this 360 sound field, it doesn't mean that, because you have a speaker up over here doesn't mean that you have to have, like, place an instrument in all of those spots. You don't need to have a tambourine up over behind your head if it doesn't make sense. One of the things I think that's one of the potentials of this that I think is really great is using it to recreate environments. Like, we were talking about that Tom Petty track earlier today.
Yes. Right?
Those drums, like it feels like you are in that studio, with that, right? It's awesome. Like that kind of stuff using, if someone records in Royal Albert Hall, how cool is it to sit in your own studio and feel like you're in Royal Albert Hall? It's super cool. So it's not so much always for me about like direct signal in places. It's like creating these environments. I find that really, really interesting.
And there's also the ability of you can use like the space between the speakers. Like, you could place an object like here and it'll know to fire that speaker and that speaker and that speaker to create this solid image and that's when like it gets really sort of magical, when you feel like there are these sounds coming from places where you know that there aren't speakers.
Yeah.
That Loma record that you put on yesterday when we were in here, there's a lot of that going on. You could hear things sort of right there and kind of right there and kind of just tails of reverbs that were kind of over there. I mean, it's really, really creative. And, the other thing that, we're talking about audio here, but I think what to me has been the most striking about what Chad and Cole have done, I mean, the sort of illuminating for me is the visual side of this thing. Yes. I mean, we had opportunity to see some Dolby Vision stuff on this rig with these screens and these projectors, and it was kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hadn't even thought of it really, because I was just thinking about, I have my, my DAWs there, and I've got the renderer there, and I keep Apple Music over there, and so you kind of have all this screen real estate to do work.
Yes.
But to do sort of video post-production or to do like the creator stuff, I think is going to be really cool. I mean,
yeah.
And that excited me. And that only happened about 3 weeks ago that I sort of started kind of fighting, I say visualizing, but I mean, it is kind of striking. And I think that's going to be such a game changer for people that are using this environment,
I mean, with some of the IAA stuff, there have been cases where I've been sent like music videos. I can put in the files with the Atmos mix. And like, if you think Atmos is immersive enough as it is, when you put up like a really cool music video at the same time that you're listening to the sound coming from all the speakers, I mean, it's really like next level. Yeah.
Yeah. And panoramic stuff. We've got some videographer that has shot some kind of nature scenes in Yellowstone and places in Montana. And if they're wrapped around you and you're kind of moving around with it, it's quite a feeling, We don't even have any music put to that yet. Right?
No, yeah, yeah. We did take some like field mics out and get some.
Well, there's
some
that
ambience
too.
Recordings.
Right? Yeah.
That's pretty cool too. Seeing seeing and hearing it all. Yeah.
So to sort of bring it all back to New Studio, so this is the first installation. Mm-hmm. You guys are looking to sort of expand beyond this. Can you sort of share any sort of preliminary next steps you're looking to take?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for asking, actually. I would have forgotten all about it.
We're kind of focused on this right now, right?
Yeah. So this fall, we haven't actually launched as a product or a brand or anything yet. We're just kind of, this is our first opportunity to get this out here in the world. And this fall, we're going to be doing a brand launch in Los Angeles. We're going to take one of these down to LA and do a brand and product launch. I expect you to be there. And we're shooting for October. And and we're going to invite a whole bunch of people to come over and talk shop and listen shop.
And then maybe some trade shows and different places where we'll drop it in different kind of strategic locations where get a lot of people to see it and hear it.
Mm-hmm, yeah, we're talking about potentially just touring the thing, actually taking it around to different cities and
that's kind of the beauty of it, all in one thing, because with any other studio you can't do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that'd be early next year. So we've started talking with some people about doing just that, and we're looking forward to it.
Just one little plug for Waterloo Sound that's putting this thing in here. So Waterloo Sound is the for-hire kind of post studio. That's what this is, and then it's located in the brand new Waterloo Records, which opens next week. And there's a vinyl gold plating machine in there. There's going to be a vinyl cutting lathe in the back end of this space. There's going to be this immersive thing going on, and it's going to be the most badass record store in the world. I mean, it's just going to be something else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, come on out. You can see this here. Or you can buy records there, live performances. I don't know. I think Corey said they're going to have 16 live in-store performances in the month of September alone. I mean, this place is going to be hopping in here. So
yeah, no kidding. This it's such a cool concept. This whole sort of I don't know.
It's a music destination.
But
it's like a destination.
Yeah, exactly. It's a record store. There's podcast studio. There's news studio. You can come get beer and wine or a coffee, and you can hang out in a record store.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty awesome. Come see a show.
I mean,
yeah.
hanging out in a record store, a normal record store, is cool enough.
Exactly.
But you throw in all this extra stuff, it's like, oh.
Right. With coffee.
Can't have that much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, all right. So thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.